So, who would like to start?
Hi guys, Sky here, and we have Stormy here.
Hello.
We know it's been a while since we've uploaded, but we're back. The latest episode, well, the first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is Marvel Studios' newest series. It premiered on last week Friday, and the episode was pretty good for the start off. This show is gonna be shorter episode wise than WandaVision, but it's gonna be about the same length. And these episodes are longer, so that's a good that's a plus for like us the fans. And just anyone who like, they don't like those short episodes that WandaVision like sort of started off with. So what did you think, Stormy?
I really liked it. There's a couple of major points that like we'll talk about throughout the video. But I think the first major takeaway is the rating choice. Obviously, everyone's been saying there's been theories. There's been stuff that people have said off and on about Marvel deciding, hey, we're gonna up the rating. It will no longer be just family-friendly content. And not to say that this show is like super bad either, but like I think this is the right step in the direction, especially coming from like a hardcore Marvel fan, just for them to be able to dive into more topics and situations. Ultimately, I loved the very few fight scenes we did get to see. To me, it felt like an upend Marvel movie type deal. We've noticed, them upping the ante, and deciding to show more and do more, which I think is in the right direction. Also, the structure and the plot for this episode was really good. And I think that it's the right step.
Yeah, I liked overall from this first episode. I really liked how it really gave me like sort of the Winter Soldier vibes, like from the movie.
Yeah.
And I really liked that movie, and it was nice to sort of because that movie was sort of like the first sort of feel we got to like a spy sort of thriller, like action, heavy based action, and like sort of one to one combat. So to see some of that in this episode was really nice. And also we got to see like some key points in this episode where we see the episode start off with this big action sequence with Sam, and he's trying to like capture Batroc and his like men because they kidnapped a soldier. So that scene was really good. It felt really cinematic and
It felt super
something that would
mature.
come out of the MCU. What?
It felt really mature compared to the other MCU fights we've seen. Like it felt like it was actually at a greater scale. Um, I think that's like one of the more actiony scenes I've seen from the MCU. To me, in my opinion, like in terms of the structure.
Yeah, it did remind me a lot of Iron Man, like, his type of fighting. But the way they executed in this opening sequence was so good. Like, it just felt really smooth. I've never really seen an action sequence do that to that, like, sort of smoothness. It felt like it was actually going on. So that was nice. Um, do you want to add on something to that?
Honestly, like I said, it felt more mature. But like the part like for me like it felt like it's the right direction, and it felt like it was like more in depth than what we're used to getting, which I feel like is gonna help future fight scenes, if they choose to stick with this tone. It also kind of felt like more fast paced, which I kind of enjoyed. It didn't feel like it was like a long drawn out fight. It felt like it was just the right amount of time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it was like just nonstop. Like, yeah, it reminded me of sort of like the like the Winter Soldier, a little bit like kind of like James Bond sort of. But yeah, I mean, I if they're gonna keep it up with that same tone going forward, I'm up for it. Um, Another point, we see Captain America's funeral in this. This could just be misleading us, and somehow Steve isn't dead, or they could always pull off something like that. But let's just say he did die. Um, it was a good moment, and it was nice to see Don Cheadle there as War Machine.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
I mean, I actually like that scene as well. That was one of the highlights of the episode for me. Just like it helps not only like set up plot a little bit more, but it gives us an idea of kind of like how the world kind of took that. You know what I mean? Especially like the conference. I know that's like not exactly in relation to it, but like those scenes to me felt like they did a lot of justice.
Yeah. Um, I do you feel that this series we're gonna see sort of like Sam's journey to accepting the shield, and because at the end of the day, like Steve chose Sam for a reason. He saw that he was a good guy who wanted to actually defend like the country for a good cause and not just like self benefit. So, and I mean, we've seen that, like he in that opening action sequence, like we know he has like the stuff to pull up, being Captain America. So, I hopefully we see that later on.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm hoping they pursue the idea of him taking the mantle and
yeah,
being more up close with that idea. To me feels like the greatest point of view here.
yeah. Um, Another point in this episode is we see this new group introduced into the MCU called the Flag Smashers, which seem to be sort of like superhumans who have like high like jumping abilities and strength. Uh, how did you feel about that? I mean, we haven't really seen much, but like, how do you feel about them possibly being like the villain or side plot as a villain?
I mean, I always think having new villains in the MCU, especially someone who sticks for longer, than in this case, a couple episodes. I always think that that's a great idea. I mean, it seems like it could possibly be potentially more than what we're seeing, which I actually like. And we haven't seen a lot of it yet, so it's really hard to judge. But like just on first glance, like I feel like this is gonna set up like pretty good plot.
Yeah. Um, Another point in this episode, we see Sam's family, his sister, and his like nephews. Um, how did you feel about that? Because we never really got to see any of Sam's background in MCU.
I mean,
We always just saw him as a like soldier.
I feel like it makes them more human. Like I was saying, it felt like it was setting up for a little bit of like a fighting racism plot. You know what I mean? Like because they're struggling, and it felt like to me like it was the right call to like show that type of like environment, especially in a Marvel MCU like status. And like I like that they're making the show more about the characters themselves rather than bigger ideas yet. Like they're actually taking time to say, hey, this character does this, or this is how they feel about this. It feels much more closer to me, and I like that. Going back to the potential racism part, like I feel like that's important to show in an environment, and obviously him taking the mantle, that's gonna have a play in it. Obviously his family's struggling, and for me, like I feel like that was the best call, and that'll lead to the most heaviest plot in that regard. And I feel like that was, overall, like, really well done scenes. It kind of sets up, for us to care about the character, if you know what I mean. Even more so than we already do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's always good to like build up your character. Cuz this will give it more like emotional and grounded feel. Um Now sort of like transitioning to Bucky. His part in this episode so far was also really good. That flashback sequence from when he's brainwashed as like the Winter Soldier. That was such a good scene. I didn't really expect to see that. How did you feel about that scene?
Um, like, overall, I feel like all the Winter Soldier scenes were good. I feel like there were bits and pieces that stood out. And I like seeing more of the backstory in the future, like, events with that character. Because obviously we haven't seen a lot from him, it was very limited. Um, and overall, I feel
Yeah.
like the scenes in general, kind of, honestly made the character more, like, believable and more caring for. Especially coming from a fan's perspective.
Yeah. Those sequences in cuz like when he was brainwashed as Bucky, we never really saw sort of like how he went through that trauma after. It wasn't really addressed as much. So it's nice that they're sort of diving more into that. And it was I thought it was a good way to um with his like buddy I forgot his name, but like his friend who's like also really old around his age,
Yeah.
and it's revealed that the kid that he killed in that like flashback was actually his son.
And I thought that
And
was a good plot element. I actually really liked that. That showed me, like, Bucky's changing. He's not like who he was. You know what I mean? And like it feels like it's gonna be a redemption arc. I wouldn't necessarily call it just a redemption, but more a continuation of like him being a good person.
yeah, we also see that scene where he's trying to make like amends with the people he like worked for during his like Hydra brainwash days, and I think that's like a cool little thing they're doing. And I'm assuming that might add on to like the plot later on.
Yeah, it
Um,
definitely felt like it was structured a lot, and it felt like it was really a different tone than what we're used to seeing in the MCU.
yeah. Um, Another sequence in this that like stood out was during the end of the episode we see this new Captain America is introduced to the world supposedly, and it's John Walker, um, who in the comics is U.S. like agent. How do you feel about that?
I mean, kind of like I said, the structure and how everything's coming into play, the pieces, the characters that they're choosing to use, the way that it looks like to the audience, I really like. I hope to see more inclusion of other characters and more plot-driven devices, especially similar to WandaVision. Um, and I feel like overall, like, it's going to lead into what we want as fans.
Yeah, I think this character will be a good villain just because like it's just hard to accept this guy who never really had anything to do with Steve, just pull out of nowhere and say he's Captain America,
Yeah, and I feel
you
like
know?
that's gonna play a lot of a plot like in the later episodes. I could see, fights happening between them. I could see disagreements, and it looks to me like it's going to be a serious topic rather than, just a throwaway. So who knows, it might last for, more than a couple episodes.
Yeah. I think the actor playing U.S. Agent is Wyatt Russell, who's Kurt Russell's son. I think he's gonna do a good job. I haven't really seen much from his work, but I mean, if he can pull it off like a sort of Captain America is trying to do the right thing, but at the same time, he's sort of like corrupt in a sense.
Yeah,
That's gonna be cool to see.
yeah, for sure. And I feel like ultimately it's like the step in the right direction, especially from a plot device point of view.
Yeah. Any other finishing like thoughts?
Honestly, just like I like the way the rating is. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but like just like I feel like this is really the strong way into the MCU coming forward, and I feel like this is gonna be a really big step. Just seeing this episode already, and I'm really excited to see what the future has in store for the MCU.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm also looking forward to this series. It's definitely feeling something more out of the MCU, unlike WandaVision, which is trying out something different.
Yeah.
Um, so it's nice that we're getting that variation, between these series. And, let us know what you guys think, and we'll see you for the next episode.